Hello and welcome back. My name is Lexi Jong and welcome to my channel. Today we are talking about the new Guerlain holiday collection, and this is called Golden Bee, and I already have a video out on the Meteorites because I was able to pick these up before the rest of the collection was released. So if you're interested in specifically the Meteorites, check out my original video. We are going to touch on these again here. You can see that the packaging for this year's holiday collection is gorgeous. We've got the Guerlain bee symbol and these Meteorites here. They're basically the same shade as the light pearls in the regular line, but they're sparkly. So it's like a sparkling light version. However, just so you know, there is no actual color name on these pearls. It just says Guerlain Meteorites Golden Bee. And these are 25 grams. They have an approximate shelf life of 12 months. But if you're somebody who already has Meteorites pearls, you know these can last many, many, many years. And these are made in France. I have a quick unboxing to show you all of the items that I picked up while they were still pristine. Then I'm going to meet you back here and we're going to do some swatches. I just wanted to share with you the unboxing of the Guerlain holiday items. Before I kind of mess them up while I'm testing them out, I wanted to show you everything while it's still pristine. So let me show you what I have. I picked up the two lipstick cases, and these are just the cases. You have to buy the lipsticks separately. They come in this velvet case. And then here's this one. There's a piece of tape here keeping it closed, so you might see that there. And you can see this is going to be red, and it's sort of a gold, but it's really more like a yellow citrine type shade mixed in there. And then the other case is silver and gold, but it's again more of that like citrine shade. So here's the other one. They are very pretty. I love these sparkle cases that Guerlain has come out with. My favorite is the purple one that's part of the regular edition or regular line. I couldn't pass up these holiday ones. They are stunning. I didn't pick up any of the lipsticks, but I did pick up the top coat. So this top coat is limited edition. They do have something similar already out. That's, I believe, part of the permanent sheer shine line from Guerlain, and that's kind of what I thought this was at first, but it specifically says top coat, and it's number 001. The other one I think is a base coat or something instead, had a different code number, but you can see that this is going to be pretty clear with all of this gold sparkle here. So I wanted to compare this to the Tom Ford Balm Frost. So we're going to be testing that out, and I think it's going to be perfect in this case. I also picked up the Golden Bee bronzer. So I don't have any Guerlain bronzers yet, so I don't have one to compare them to. However, these are going to be a little bit more shimmery for the holidays. So here is the actual bronzer. And it's 0.3 ounces or 10 grams. And it's made in France. And you can see the sparkle in there. And you've got the pretty bee logo on there as well. Now the actual container, this is, I don't know, like a plastic or tin kind of lightweight material. And then the lid also, but we do have a mirror on the side. So it does make a nice little set. And you can see that this, you just kind of push down to close. It's sort of a snap-in, but yeah. So it like push it down to seal it in all the way. And you can see that this, I could actually like kind of bend this. So it is very lightweight, and the bottom is slightly rounded. The bronzer, by the way, is scented, and it is the Guerlain Terracotta scent. And then this is the eyeshadow palette. It's, sorry, I don't want to blind you, but it is a mirror gold finish with the Golden Bee logo. We have a full-size mirror at the top, and then this is the actual palette. And I wasn't really sure what these shades would look like in person, because online I saw some photos where the shades looked really dark and others where they looked really like pastel. So I wasn't sure. So this is what we have in here as well. One end is a brush and one end is a foam tip applicator. All right, thanks for sharing my unboxing. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on the eyeshadow palette. And this eyeshadow palette, again, it's made in France, and there are 10 1.2 gram shadows, and it has an approximate shelf life of 6 months. Although if this is similar to last year's palette, I can tell you that mine are still going strong, and it's obviously been a year. So I am going to swatch these up and down. So we're going to start with the greens, and then we'll move our way over. These are the first 4 shades. And this palette contains different formulas. So some will swatch better than others. Let's add a little bit more of that green so you can see that a little bit better. These are the next 4 shades. And then the last 2 shades. So this palette contains a few different formulas here. I think there are 3 different eyeshadow formulas, although at first glance it might seem to be only 2. Now let's start with the matte shades. We have this deep green, and you can see that there is a little bit of a black base here. And then the next matte shade is going to be this rusty terracotta shade here. And then we have the taupe shade and a deep amethyst. So these are all mattes. Then we have a couple of satin shades. We have this pale spring green, and then we also have this more pumpkin orange shade. And these 2 are more of a satin finish. There's a little bit of shimmer, but they're not as sparkly as the others. Now these other ones are more of a shimmer finish. We have this really pale ivory shade, and we have this warm peachy gold shade. There is this pale ice blue and a pale dusty lavender. And these all have more shimmer. Now the palette itself is lightweight. It comes with a dual-ended applicator, which I showed you during the unboxing, and it does have a full-size mirror. Next up, let's take a look at the Terracotta Golden Bee Bronzer. This is my first bronzer from Guerlain, so I don't have any of the others. However, it does have the terracotta scent like any of the bronzers in the terracotta line. This is 10 grams or 0.3 ounces. It's also made in France. And this is an illuminating bronzer. So if you actually read the back, it says illuminating powder on it as well. And you can see you've got the gorgeous imprint, but there is gold sparkle in there. So here is that. I'm gonna swatch, well, let's go ahead and swatch it down here. So here's the bronzer. You can see it actually fits well in the eyeshadow palette, so you could totally use it on the eyes as well. What I like about this container is not only is it lightweight, but I like having the mirror here in the lid. And last up, I purchased the top coat. And the top coat here, this is a few layers of it. You can see it's a clear base with lots of gold glitter. Let me show you one swatch. So here's one swatch. And here are several. So it can be built up a bit, and it looks fine on its own, but if you really want to pick up the gold, you want to have a base color down. Now I have several different looks to show you. I've got 3 different eye looks, and I have a couple of different bronzer applications. So I used the bronzer as a blush. I've also used it as a traditional bronzer, and I showed you how it applied with a couple different brushes. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at all of those clips, and I'll meet you back here for my thoughts. I'm taking the Sonia G Crease Pro, and I'm going into the light gold shade here. I actually just started doing this and forgot to hit record. So there's a little bit already on. Next up, I'm taking a Sonia G Soft Shader. I'm gonna go into the pale green. Same brush, going into the light blue. And going back into light green. The green one is a little bit harder to pick up in the pan. It's a little firmer. just feathering over the blue a little bit. And same brush going into light lavender. I'm just going to use my finger in the light blue and tap a little bit of this onto the center. I'm going back in with the Crease Pro and just buffing the edges here. For the lower lash line, I'm going to take the eye blend brush from Chantecaille and go into this light brown taupey shade. It's a little bit darker than I thought, so I'm not going to continue with that. I'm gonna clean off the brush and buff that out. So cleaned off the brush, and I'm just gonna kind of soften the color a little. I'm gonna take the eye blend brush into the ivory shade. I'm gonna apply this over the brown. And this is my first eye look with the palette. I'm going to finish up and show you a distance shot. This is the final eye look from a distance, and I added the Chantecaille eyeliner in Olive Brocade, which is like an olive green with a little bit of sparkle. And other than that, I just added that to the upper lash line. I had the Surratt Noir Lash Tint on, and that's it. We are starting off with the Crease Pro from Sonia G in this ivory shade. I'm going to buff this all the way up to the brow. Next, I'm taking the Sonia G Mini Booster and I'm going in the taupe shade. Next, I'm going into this deep amethyst with the Sonia G Soft Shader. And this is the brush I used with the last look, so you can still see a little pigment. So you can see that this really can go out very lightly. I'm going to just keep it a little bit darker on the outer corner and move it in lighter on the inside. Wiped off the brush, I'm going into the light lavender shade. I'm going to dab this in the center and see how that does. I'll just kind of dab it all over. And now I want to take my finger in this shade and we're going to see if that makes much of a difference. Okay, so yes, using the finger definitely makes a difference with this shade. You can get kind of like a frosty look. Taking the Sonia G Crease Pro and blending this out a little bit. So just like this, you can see that I've got the depth from the darker purple on the outer edges as well, but I want to actually make a little change to the outer edge. So I'm going back in with the Mini Booster. I'm going to go into the deep green, the forest green. Just going to get a little bit on the brush and dab this here, just on the very outer corner. I just wiped off the brush and I'm just going to kind of pat that a little bit to feather it into the purple a little bit more. Okay, now I'm just taking this small crease and just kind of running it into the socket. Now for lining the eyes, I am taking the Sonia G Pencil 1. I'm going to go into the deep green. So I'm going to do a line on the upper lash line. And I'm also going to put this on the outer portion of the lower lash line. So I'm just taking what's left, going up a little bit. I'm just gonna, not really winging it out, but just a little bit of a point here where the two meet. So I am taking this brush, I did wipe it off, and I'm gonna go into the amethyst shade. And I'm just gonna get a little bit on the brush and I'm gonna run this right here, slightly overlapping. And that's it, just that little part right there. I wipe the brush off again. I'm going to go into the light lavender. I'm going to, starting from the inner corner here, and I'm running over all of the lower lash line. I'm going to take this brush and go into the pale gold for the inner corner highlight. So just twirl the tip a little bit. I'm just going to dab this right here in the corner. Just going to dab a little bit right under the brow as well. And I'm going back in with the soft shader, and I am just lightly feathering, lightly smudging out the upper lash line a little bit, just to make it a little softer. And I'm going to finish this off by using the Chantecaille Brightening Eye Kaujal on the lower rim and add some mascara, and I will be back. And this is the final eye look from a distance. I added the Guerlain Mad Eyes Mascara in brown, and that was it. We are starting off with the Sonia G Blender Pro, and I'm going to go into the ivory shade. Just going to put this all over, working up to the brow and then all over the lid as a thin base as well. Taking the Sonia G Mini Booster into the taupe, I'm going to add this to the crease. Using the same brush and going into the matte rust shade. It's kind of like a rusty terracotta. I'm just going to add this to the outer corner and get a little bit more. Using the same mini booster, going into the gold, I'm going to add just a dab of this to the inner corner. I'm going to spread this up just a little bit here. And next I'm taking the Sonia G Soft Shader in this more pumpkin orange shimmer shade. I'm going to add this basically all over the lid. You can see there's a little bit of a sheen to this, but it's not sparkly. Using my finger in the gold, I'm just going to add a little bit of this to the center of the eyelid. Going back in with the Blender Pro and just softening any edges. I'm going to add my base makeup, and then I will be back to add in the lower lash line and eyeliner and so forth. For the lower lash line, I'm going to go into the light blue, and I'm using the Chantecaille Eye Blend brush. I'm going to add a dab of this here at the inner corner. Just kind of bring that up just a little bit so it kind of connects. For the upper lash line, I'm going into the deep amethyst. And I want to keep this close to the lash line, but obviously this is a thick brush, so it's going to just be kind of like a softened hint of purple. I went a little too high on this one, so I'm just adding a little bit more of the orange shimmer shade on top of that purple right there. And then just a touch more of the gold in the center. This is my final eye look up close, and I'm going to add some mascara. I'm going to use the Guerlain Mad Eyes in brown, and then I'll be back. So this is the final eye look from a distance. We are going to test out the Guerlain Terracotta Bronzer, and this is really my first experience with a bronzer from Guerlain. And I wasn't aware of this, but they're really the first company to make bronzers, so they're kind of the original. And the one for the holiday is like more of a sparkling bronzer. So instead of putting it a little bit lower, I'm going to use it in place of blush today. And It does have the Guerlain terracotta scent. I know the other terracotta bronzers have the same scent as well. So if you like that, it's here. If you don't like it, stay clear. I'm going to take the Rephr 24 brush and I'm just going to get a little bit on here. It comes up very easily. You can see how much pigment I got. All right, so let's just pat it on first. You can see the color right away. All right, I actually think that's plenty of pigment, but I do want to blend that out more. So I'm going to apply the pigment to the other side, and then I am going to clean off the brush and diffuse it. All right, so I wiped off the brush. I'm just going to kind of spread that in, and I am like pressing it lower versus higher on the cheek. So it's kind of in between blush and bronzer. And can you see that golden sheen? Definitely have a golden sheen from this. Just gonna use a little bit kind of around my face. And excuse my chin, I'm sure nobody's as clumsy as I am, but I was putting on skincare this morning and I cut myself with my nail because obviously I'm not familiar with where my fingers should go. So here is the bronzer. I'm going to move you out further so you can see it from a distance. And this is the bronzer from a distance. So you can see it really kind of looks a little bit like an illuminating blush. It's obviously a bit bronzer, more golden than many. So it's very warm tone and it has, you know, a pretty strong sheen to it. I'm taking the Chantecaille F04 and here's the bronzer. And again, we've got a mirror in the lid, which I think is really helpful. So I have been using different brushes with this bronzer and it is a little bit, it's a little warm and pigmented for me. It's like a soft powder, so it's easy to get the pigment on the brush and, you know, then apply it to your face. So I think actually a softer brush like this works a little bit better, something a little bit looser versus a firmer brush. Just gonna add a little bit more around my face. All right, so here is the bronzer. I'm gonna move you out so you can see it a little bit better. All right, so I think it's a little bit easier to see the effect of the bronzer from a distance. So here it is. I'm gonna add some blush and then we're gonna go ahead and use the Guerlain Meteorites. I'm gonna use the Suku 102 cheek palette. I'm gonna use this more mauve tone shade. And I'm using the Chantecaille KZ04. For a highlight, I'm actually going to go into the Guerlain Meteorites. And I'm just taking some of the residue off the side of the container. This is actually a large eyeshadow brush. This is the Chantecaille F05. Just gonna add a little bit here. So if you're looking for a more, you know, subtle look with these meteorites, I think it adds a really nice subtle highlight. You just get a little bit of shimmer, but nothing major. However, I am going to use it as finishing powder too. I just wanted to make sure I showed you this. I'm taking the Givenchy Master Face Brush. I'm just going to swirl it in here, stamp it, and then buff. And you can see that my skin now has a little bit of a sparkly glow. It's not like I don't see like glitter or anything on my skin, but there is definitely some light catching qualities to this. I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit more just where I want the highlight here and make that a little bit brighter. Next up, we're going to take a look at the sparkly top coat, and this is shade 001. I've been using it, and I've used it on top of lipstick, on top of lip liners, and so forth, and I've been comparing it to the Tom Ford Balm Frost as well. So I'm going to move you in closer so you can see the effect that it has on my lips. So here it is, and you can see that it's like ivory with some gold sparkle in there. And I chose to put it in this case. This is one from the holiday collection. The other one that is part of the holiday is this red and gold. So this is white crystal and gold, or silver and gold. So let's go ahead and see how this looks. You can see right away the gold sparkle. So this is the top coat all by itself. Now I'm going to show you the Tom Ford Balm Frost. I'm going to take this off and I'm going to put them on half and half. All right, so one side of my lips has the Guerlain top coat and the other side has the Tom Ford Balm Frost. Can you figure out which is which? This side here, which is on my left, is the Guerlain top coat. And over here on my right, we have the Tom Ford Balm Frost. And I went back and forth one time with each of them so you can see how pigmented or how sparkly they are with one real coat. And did you get it right? I'd love to know in the comments if you could tell a difference between the two of these. Okay, so now I have filled in my lips with the Sisley lip liner in Nude. And let's go ahead and apply the top coat. So you can see when you put this top coat on top of a color, you really pick up a lot more of that gold, especially for a warmer tone color. But honestly, with any color, I've tried pinks and purples as well, and you really get more of that gold fleck tone to it. I switched the lip liner to the Pat McGrath Starstruck lip liner and then topped it with the top coat again. And you can see still picking up quite a bit of gold, even though it is a pink lip liner. Let's go over my thoughts on these products. We're gonna start off with the Guerlain Meteorites. Just a quick update. As I said in my original video, I still like these. I like using them as a light layer for a finishing powder, which is how I have it on now, but I also like using it as a more subtle highlight, and I like how versatile they are. If I had to choose between these and pearls from the regular line, I will probably use the ones from the regular line more frequently just because I don't always want the shimmer. But I am so happy to have these, and I think they are worth considering and picking up. Next, let's move on to the bronzer. When I first started using this, and I used it a few times before I filmed it, I honestly wasn't sure how much I liked it. So when you open it, you kind of have that overwhelming terracotta scent. But the more times I've used it, I think the smell has dispersed a little bit after having it open. And it's still there. It's still strong. I still smell it, but it's not quite as strong as it was when I first opened it. I'm not sure how I feel about the scent, honestly. I'd rather it not be there, and I'm not sure whether it bothers me enough yet not to purchase more from this line, but I do like the actual bronzer. I really like the packaging on this, and at first when I was using the bronzer, I didn't really like it. It's definitely illuminating. You've got that gold sheen. When you apply it with a denser brush, you really pick up a lot of that like satin gold finish, which can look really nice on slightly deeper skin tones than mine and a little bit warmer skin tones than mine. So I think it's probably more ideal for somebody slightly warmer tone than I am. However, when I apply it with a looser brush, such as the FO4 brush from Chikuhodo, I really like that application. So you don't pick up as much of the sheen because it's not really buffed into your skin as much. And it really does give a nice accent, and I think it really enhanced my cheekbones a bit today. So overall, I do like the bronzer. I don't think it's my favorite bronzer. However, I appreciate it. As for the actual quality of the bronzer, I think the actual quality of the bronzer is fantastic. My current favorite bronzer is the Gucci bronzer. I love how it's a soft powder and how it applies. I love personally the reddish undertone in the fair shade that I use. So I really love the Gucci bronzer. Now, this formula I feel like is actually fairly similar. It's also a soft powder, very similar in texture and feel to the Gucci. However, this is going to be essentially a illuminating version of that. And again, I haven't tried any other Guerlain bronzers. So they do have matte ones, which might be a bit more similar to the Gucci. But in my opinion, aside from the color, this is definitely warmer, a little bit orangier than the Gucci in Fair. But I think the actual formula itself is very similar. Both of them are scented products. I could do without the scent in both of them personally, but honestly, I really like the product a lot. So would I recommend this? If you are looking for an illuminating bronzer, I would recommend this. I also think if you are warmer tone than I am, and I think like light to medium skin tones, this would be a really beautiful blush as well. It doesn't work quite as well as a blush for me, just because the color doesn't work so well with my skin tone, but I can see it looking gorgeous, and in some ways is reminiscent of the illuminating blush from Chanel's holiday collection, just in the finish that you get on your face. So if you're looking for something like that, that's a little bit warmer toned, a little bit more pumpkin-like, this would be a good option for that as well. Now let's move on to the top coat. And the top coat, I almost didn't get it, but I really wanted to see how it compared to the new Tom Ford Balm Frost, which I've really been enjoying. And I have to say, they have some similarities. However, the formula for this is, I don't know, I like it a little bit better. It's a little bit more moisturizing than the Tom Ford one. So if you're familiar with the Guerlain Sheer Shine lipsticks, you may have noticed that that product is a little bit firmer than their satin or matte formula lipsticks. So it's just a little bit harder product to apply in general. Not that it's hard to get the pigment, but it just feels a little drier going on. This top coat is not like that. It has the same shape as the bullets in the Sheer Shine line. However, the formula itself is a little bit softer and more malleable on the lips. This top coat is fairly emollient. It's very comfortable. It feels moisturizing, and I haven't had any issues with dryness or anything from this top coat. Now, if you're looking for something super sparkly, this is actually a little sparklier than the Tom Ford. This one also has a stronger gold reflect. So it depends kind of what you're looking for. Which product would I recommend? It's hard to say because honestly, they are both gorgeous. So right here we have the swatches. This is one layer of the Guerlain, and this is a few layers of the Guerlain. Let's put the Balm Frost here. So you can see that the Balm Frost doesn't really have so much gold. It's like gold and silver mixed, and both of them have about the same size shimmer particles, but the Guerlain actually has a little bit higher concentration of shimmer than the Balm Frost does. Now, again, if you look at the Balm Frost, it looks like it's gonna be super sparkly, but once you actually start using it, you can see that there's just not quite as much embedded in there. Meanwhile, the Sheer Shine, you've got just a little bit more, even though you don't have that outer corner coating. And I mean, I've been using this for about a week now. So I've used it every day, And I think in regards to grittiness, both of them are pretty comparable. I don't really notice any, with the first few applications. If it's the only thing I'm wearing that day and I just keep reapplying and reapplying, eventually I do notice a little bit of grittiness from both products. Now, the Tom Ford Balm Frost, how much was this? I think this was like $56. And this is, I think it's like 33 US dollars usually. I bought it from Selfridges. I want to say it was like $30 from Selfridges, but you have to buy a cap separately. So this one here, they retail for, I believe, 37 US dollars. Usually they're a little cheaper on Selfridges, but they do have some as low as $22 in the regular line. So overall, price-wise, considering you have to buy a cap and so forth for this, they're about the same. So it's really more just a personal preference. And I really like both of them. I find both of them moisturizing on my lips. But again, the Guerlain formula is a little bit softer on my lips than the Tom Ford is. However, they both feel nice, they both feel moisturizing, and they both provide quite a bit of sparkle. The difference with the Guerlain sparkle is you are definitely seeing more gold than you are with the Tom Ford. So it really depends what you're looking for, but I don't think you need both, but I think picking one up is a fun choice. Now, as for the eyeshadow palette, and I have gotten a lot of questions about this on Instagram and in the comment sections, and I've been testing this out. I know that there are some reviews out that weren't that favorable. I have not watched any reviews. I've made sure to stay away from anything talking about the palette so that I could remain unbiased. And I have to say, I have tested out every single color. And overall, I think the palette is okay. The shadows in this palette remind me more of an old-fashioned powder formula than most of the newer powder formulas that have come out. Most of the newer powder eyeshadows, they have a little bit of a creamy texture to them, and you can feel that when you're swatching or when you're applying them. They're not dusty or anything like that, and these are not them. So these are definitely a powder formula, and again, we've got like 3 different finishes. They all kind of are a little bit different in texture. So the mattes, I had absolutely no problem with the mattes. They didn't really blend away. I can take a matte, put it down, and then sheer it out. But when I sheer it out, I'm still seeing that color. So it's not like blending away to nothing, but it will sheer out. If you want to keep it strong and intense, you want to tap it on, leave it there. You can still kind of blur out the edges and so forth. So I myself have not had issues with any of the matte shades. I think the green shade, I wish it didn't have such a strong black base, because when you do blend it out, you can see a bit of that black, and I'd rather see more green than black. So other than that though, I think all the matte shades are fine. The taupe shade I really like, and I'm glad they included it in there because I think it's really helpful with the other shades in here. Now, I think the worst shade in this palette is this pale green, which is unfortunate because I actually really love the color, but it's also the most challenging one to apply. It's one of those ones that really doesn't show up well, and you kind of have to keep going over it. So that one really has to be built up, and even then, you're not going to get that much impact. Even with this swatch, I had to swatch it twice to get the color. So this one doesn't go on super well. The ivory is fine depending on what you're using it with. I usually use it more buffy into the crease, and you get just this really soft effect. You don't see too much of it. It blends into my skin tone well, but again, I didn't have issues with it, and it does provide a nice base for blending out any other shadows. This gold shade is also not quite as impactful as I would have liked. Now, if you use it wet, you can get it to be more impactful, and if you're using it dry, if you start blending that away, you end up with more of a shimmer effect than necessarily a strong pigmented shadow. And I think that is another one that is best applied with a patting motion versus blending that out. Now, this pumpkin orange shadow, I had absolutely no problems with. It went on very nicely, and if you do start spreading it out, it really brings out the satin sheen to it. So I think it's a really beautiful shade. My favorite shades in here are probably going to be these three here, just because I love them. I love the actual colors. And I thought these three applied very, very well. This light blue is my favorite overall from this palette. And I wish all of the other more shimmery shades were quite as nice as that one. That one, it goes on exactly like it looks like in the pan, and it's very easy to pick up. Now, as I mentioned, some of these are a little bit harder to apply to the eyes, but they're also a little bit firmer in the pan. So that's, if it seems like it's hard to get up on the brush, it's in general harder to get onto the eye with these shades as well. So overall, I love the color story that is in this palette. The quality of the shadows, I think, is mediocre. So would I say that I hate this palette? No, but I also don't love this palette. I do love the color story in it. I will continue to use this palette because I think that the shadows they're okay. And obviously I paid for it, so I want to use what I bought. But would I recommend purchasing it? I would say it depends what colors you are most attracted to in this palette, but honestly, you can find similar shades from other brands for, a better price. You could even just go with like an indie brand like Sydney Grace or somebody and get some singles and so forth as well. However, if you're somebody like me who just really likes this color story, in that case, it might be worth picking up the palette. Just go in there knowing that this is more of an older eyeshadow formula than what we are typically used to seeing come out nowadays. So I don't think the shadows are bad. I just think they aren't really a modern formula. I have to say I'm very happy with all of the looks I created with this palette, and overall, I think it's okay. I hope this video was helpful, and I would love to know if you've already picked up any of these items and what your thoughts are on them. And if you haven't, are you considering picking up anything from here? Now, right now, a lot of these pieces are available at Selfridges, and they go in and out of stock. So if you're interested, keep checking. They come back and then they go out very quickly, but they are there and they have been restocking. Now, as for the US retailers, the bronzer and the pearls are available at Sephora. Might be something you are interested in picking up during the Sephora VIP sale if you are a VIP member. If not, remember you can always sign up, but I think it's only 10% off for the insider level. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I will have all that information in my Sephora recommendations video next week. As for the eyeshadow palette and the top coat, I haven't seen those available here in the States yet, but they should be coming. They should be coming to different retailers and department stores. I don't know who specifically will get them first or when, but as soon as I see something, I will definitely post it on my Instagram, and make sure you're checking there. I usually post this information in my stories. So make sure you check there for updates on these items as well as any sales information. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please make sure you hit that and hit the notification bell. I have a lot of things coming up that might be showing up at various times. So hitting that notification bell will help you be alerted whenever I have a new video posted. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope this was helpful. And again, please let me know what you think down below in the comments, and I will see you soon. Have a great day.